Hi, I'm Deborah Richmond, and I've been a licensed architect for 25 years. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the different design phases and what they entail, and hopefully shed a little light on what can be a long and complex process, but also a very satisfying and meaningful project. Projects often begin with something called master planning. This can look a lot of different ways and can range from highly illustrative storytelling kinds of studies and images about everything from a city block to a whole suburban community, to simple studies that can just show the number of housing units, for example, or other building types that a particular site can support. In the first instance, one might meet with communities and workshops or with public agency representatives to discuss the existing hopes and aspirations of a community before proposing new ideas for a particular site or neighborhood. The design team, which might at this point include a landscape architect, a civil engineer, and even a green communities planner, would produce simple yet illustrative plans that would suggest the placement of major buildings in a large development, streets, landscape, and other features. In the second example, what we might call simply a yield analysis study, this would look more like 3D or block massing images that might, for instance, show the number of housing units a piece of land could support, how much of the parcel a building is allowed to cover, and other basic parameters such as setbacks and open space often required by the municipality. Not every project begins with a master plan, and many clients will break this work up such that a different design team would create the master plan than the design team working on the buildings. But let's say a master plan has been completed or is not necessary given the smaller scale of a project, and your client is ready to begin some preliminary or conceptual design of one building or a group of buildings on the site. Quite often, the level of detail that such a study would produce could be used for what in many locales is called an entitlement package. Entitlements refer simply to the amount and the kind of development that a city will allow on a parcel. Sometimes a client will simply want to do what is already allowed on a site, which is called by right development, but often a client will want to explore larger developments that align better with existing conditions or future conditions based on economic data and projections. In the latter case, it becomes necessary to request permission of the city planning department and therefore the community to build more or differently than what's currently allowed. The consultants an architect would need in this case would be a civil and traffic engineer, landscape architect at a minimum, and could include utilities consultants and signage designers, among others, depending on the nature of the development. The architect is trying to answer the city's question, how will this development impact the surrounding community? How will it look? Literally, what color will it be, and how many cars will be added to surrounding streets? Let's say that a client comes to you with a fully entitled development, or the project you've been working on is entitled and receives city planning approval. After you finish celebrating that milestone, it's time to refine the design, bring the full consultant team on board, and get down to brass tacks. This is when the architect and/or the owner begin speaking with structural engineers, mechanical and electrical engineers, and many others depending on the project. Everyone begins attending meetings and providing input and guidance, and beginning even some basic drawings of their own. Schematic design packages move the project forward by layering in more design parameters than were present in the entitlement package, such as more detailed code requirements related to fire and light safety, broad decisions like construction type, structural systems, and mechanical and electrical strategies would at this time begin to be factored into the architectural design as well. The architect would then also work with the client to create a palette for the rest of the project that's not visible to the public, and to add detail to anything already approved in the planning process. Once a client has approved the schematic design package and has no further changes, the design team will begin the process of refinement and continued testing of the initial assumptions of the design. More detailed design like door and window details, wall sections, roof and floor assemblies will be added to the drawings. The package will tend to grow exponentially at this time as standard details that the building department must review, such as ADA signage, exiting plans, and more, are folded into the package. A specification writer might also be brought onto the design team at this time. A spec writer, as they're known, will provide the written project manual. That is as much of a legal document as a guide, holding tradespeople and contractors to standards developed by their own trade organizations, and also, very importantly, tying them to specific products and levels of performance for every material, assembly, finish, and piece of equipment in a building. The drawings and specifications together form the legal basis for the project and begin to coalesce during design development. Finally, architects will produce a color and materials board for the client's review and approval. This includes materials and colors for both exterior and interior and becomes a good tool for communication and agreement regarding these important details between the owner and the rest of the design team. Other consultants, too, will be providing their own specifications and more robust drawings during this phase. The structural system will be chosen, mechanical systems will be laid out, and other basic details that might impact cost are fleshed out. Often a cost analysis will be run no later than the end of design development on a project, and sometimes will be run at the end of each phase. So moving on into construction documents, which is the next phase, it's really just a continuation of what the team has been working on. Essentially dialing in more and more detail, making sure schedule and cost are still on track, and sometimes beginning to meet with building department officials to preview the package and make sure it's on track to be checked and permitted in a timely manner. If a builder has not already been pre-selected at this point, this is the drawing package that would be used for obtaining bids and choosing the winning builder. Once the permit is obtained and the builder is selected, construction administration, sometimes called construction observation, begins. It's the architect's job to observe the construction site and indicate whether the work is complying with the drawings. During this time, there will be weekly owner, architect, and contractor meetings called OAC meetings, and the architect and engineers will carefully document their site visits, take photos, and let the owner know anytime there is a deviation from the drawings or specs. It can be a convivial and cooperative experience, or a combative and adversarial one. It all depends on the level of communication and everyone's buy-in for putting the needs of the project first. Some good strategies for achieving this convivial environment with the owner really boil down, again, to communication. It's important to establish healthy contractual relationships and understandings, healthy boundaries between everyone on the team, and a communication protocol, which means the people on which team are in charge of making contacts with others on other teams. That protocol is key. Private side conversations, verbal promises, or other back-channel chit-chat can lead to missed expectations and just plain misunderstandings. Of course, providing some opportunities for more relaxed and informal communication is good for morale in general, but when it comes to the project, all of the trust in the world between the parties will not matter if there is a real conflict or misunderstanding later, and no paper trail for everyone to depend on. With points of contact in place and the team hierarchy clear, creating regular meetings and check-ins with real agendas and minutes are also a great way to manage everyone's expectations. Similarly, with sub-consultants, establishing points of contact, regular meetings, and respectful communication protocols go a long way to ensuring that the project design is well integrated and thoughtfully conceived. Best practices would be that all consultants needed for a team are on board from the very beginning, even if not everyone is attending every meeting in every phase. Gradually phasing consultants in and out, keeping everyone apprised of each other's work and progress, is truly one of the hallmarks of the architect's role on a project as the hub discipline and the traffic director all in one. If an owner decides that they want sub-consultants to have their contracts directly with the owner as opposed to being with the architect, the whole team needs to agree to a schedule and milestones such that the architect will have some leverage if a consultant is underperforming. Again, that path of communication is important because it does no good to argue with your structural engineer about meeting deadlines if they're being paid by the owner who's not aware of the performance issues. Generally, however, the most successful design teams simply want to work together and create the most integrated and optimized building systems given the time and budget parameters. Using building information modeling has also now helped design teams to iron out small conflicts between their disciplines during design, or clashes as they're known. But nothing beats an integrated conceptual design from the get-go. This is how we create beautiful buildings together. Thank you for listening, and I hope you now have a better sense of how the process of designing buildings unfolds and of the team that it takes to get there.